Good morning. I just got up well, within the hour. And I got that itch to do some looking at VODs for funsies.
Ready for battle.
So nothing fancy. Just gonna be me looking over the Falcons versus CR game. So I haven't seen anything of this game. I just know that CR wins and which maps were played. But I didn't watch it live. I haven't seen any clips from it, so I don't have
Five,
any idea what's going on.
four,
So I'm just gonna look
three,
through here and
two,
just see what
one.
happened, throw
Round
down some
one.
commentary.
Capture the objective.
So that's pretty standard TP rollout. Comps here are pretty. I was gonna say pretty standard. They're not standard at all, but that's okay. Um, to walk it through, by standard, I just mean that it's standard structure. So you have your um, main DPS, who's going to be your main consistent damage output, your main tank buster, etc. So that'll be your Bastion. You have your flankers. Tracer's obviously a standard pick for that. Um, Curie is, of course, the most common pick for flex support. She's very flexible, very adaptive. Um, lot of really strong utility, and especially she goes well with Cat, who doesn't give that much presence on the side lane in terms of like healing and direct blocking of access. So it helps to have a hero who can just disappear, right? Same principle of why Lucio is pretty good with Curie. They're both very slippery heroes. Means that Curie doesn't really need that much care. Um, and of course, the difference with the Mauga and Ram, I personally, it's hard to say which I would say is better on this map. I think I would say that the Ram is probably a little bit more of a nuisance to deal with on this map because he has a little bit more enduring point presence. And it's kind of hard for the Bastion to actually have point presence here, even with the cat. So it's kind of even. In general, the tanks are going to just be pretty evenly matched. Um, and it's probably more preference than anything, especially because this meta is still developing. So you'll note that both teams are rolling out the cat bastion towards coast. This is like the most standard way to roll out, for example, if you're on Pharmacy, things like that. Because ideally you want map control that that gives you multiple angles around the objective to make it more dangerous for the opponent than it is for you. So historically, that just involves sending your flanker around this way, and then everybody else kind of going main, just because there's not that many heroes who can safely be over here on coast without like potentially getting pooped off by a Lucio or a Pharah, or just ending up in like really close quarters in an uncomfortable way if the enemy team pushes towards point. But so what you'll notice here is this like really, really broad grab of map control by sending people coast. So I actually don't love that Hanbin is going coast too. We'll see how it turns out because if Merit and Chio develop their angle really far this way, then it might be pretty effective still. But if Chio and Merit are too conservative on their angle, Hanbin's gonna have a really hard time stepping forwards. Um, Compared to, you'll note that CR are getting like a little bit larger of a swath of map control here because Charong and Stalker are playing really quietly up here, and they're just kind of chilling um, on the side while they wait for Junbin to step on main. And you'll note that Vigilante and Husang are like all the way over here. And this grabs like a little bit more aggressive space even over to this angle. They're playing these sides of the map and developing both these lanes. And historically, teams don't tend to want to play all three lanes at once just because it's really hard to, for this lane, for example, to pressure this one um, on a moment's notice if Falcons were to go in aggressively. But Cat, because you have this vertical component, it's actually a little bit easier to time this three-lane play with the right heroes so that if something happens over by these guys, Stalker and Charong are very open. And if something happens by Stalker and Charong, it's actually pretty hard for something to happen to them because they're up in the skybox. And then these guys are both pretty mobile heroes as well. So let's see, they'll be playing really quietly. And Merit and Chio aren't developing this that hard. They don't want to hard swing this. And you'll also note that Vigilante is so far back, right? So he has proper spacing. So if there's a crash out on Junbin, he's nowhere near the engage range. He has eyes on Tahisang to be able to support this. And he actually also has vision to be able to like Suzu or heal all the way up here too. So this is really good proper flex support positioning. Fielder's in the same kind of case, right? He's actually positioned where he's like a little bit disconnected from the Mauga, and that's totally okay because Mauga's healthy. But importantly, he can support this, and you'll see that Checkmate and Fielder have kind of a pinch here to stop Heesang from developing this angle further and wrapping behind. And Hanman's just going to be kind of efficiency chilling on point. So most of the actual like presence here is actually going to be dependent on two things, and the first thing is going to be the Bastion HP trades because it's going to be very hard to replenish the HP if that goes down. So if either Bastion drops their HP a lot, then the cat uses their heal shift and then continues to drop lower, that's going to dramatically affect the late fight presence of the enemy team. The other thing is going to be how the Tracers manage to interact with the Curies on the other team, because if the Curies are down, that's going to really affect the ability to stabilize their tank. So the tank trades are going to like be a factor as well here, but a little bit muted unless there's also presence on the Curie. So here we see he's saying is see, right, immediately trying to skip for this hit on Fielder. This is something that Checkmate really loves to do, is he likes to like lurk um, and wait for the tracer to develop on what looks free and then hit the pinch. So right now, I think that Jinbin and Stalker are going to have a really positive looking HP trade on Hanbin because we're starting to see this pinch. So Hanbin has developed this angle, um, but Merit and Chio are still on like, still kind of just playing to mark this. They're not really like doing any sort of setup. So let's see. I'm a little nervous where Fielder's actually going to TP to. Because if Fielder TPs onto Hanbin, that's no good. Chio and Merit is like an okay TP, but it lands him still pretty close, and it's hard to manage successfully, especially if they push Hanbin at the same time. And then a TP to checkmate actually lets CR just perfectly hop onto Hanbin. So the Fielder actually getting marked this early, even if checkmate is like there to kind of handle it, might actually be really bad. Okay, so they're on it fast enough that Fielder doesn't have to TP. That's really fortunate for Falcons. So this isn't too bad for Falcons. This is kind of a more traditional setup now, where so Hanbin has swung with Merit and Chio to clear out um, Charong and Stalker, so they guarantee that they would have the positive HP trade, right? We can see that Stalker's already down and already heading out. So that's going to force this into a more traditional setup, where you have one team kind of set up like this, controlling these lanes and trying to develop one of these side lanes as their tank steps from main. Um, versus this where there's a team kind of just bunkered on point with one has their tank in like one of these side doors, a flanker kind of controlling one of these side lanes and looking to put some soft threat into the enemy team's backline, and then their backline kind of like bunkered like flex support is going to be on the opposite side of the tank so that they can stay connected. Um, and then the Bastion um, Cat will probably be trying to just look around to see if they can spot any good trades to have without being too dangerous. Probably on the Curi's side if I had to choose one, but they could really do either. So here's the wrap. We have the match still from Tracer. Yeah, so Checkmate just gets annihilated. My guess is he just wasn't paying attention to the Bastion coming by because it looks like he got hit by a nade. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So yeah, he's just he doesn't he's entirely unaware of this pressure that's developing from this top angle, and that's admittedly it's a hard one to keep track of. Probably just some of the aspect of not being as used to dealing with with this meta. Yeah, so that's rough. But you'll note that like on a macro level, it's not just like haha cat go burr. But if you look at the development here, so checkmate pinches in to get Hisang, but then ironically, because Falcons went for a less greedy space grab on the initial fight, when Hisang recalls out, checkmate is actually in a pinched in position again. So then when now he's going kind of head to head with Hisang, and he's a little nervous to go blink into here because that could likely end up as a 2v1. Because if Vigi just TPs onto Hisang here with checkmate like in here and they just 2v1 him, he's in kind of a rough situation. So he's playing trying to go for like mega and like on the back foot rather than like on the side foot. But then the problem is he's not used to this cut across coming from here. And this is why Cat is so strong is um they open up a lot more angle options that aren't normally there. So for example, this would be the same as if like Genji like climbed over the wall, right? This sudden like 2v1 here, this isn't as isolated as he thinks. So he would have to be timing this better with his team because if you look at Checkmate's level of aggression and accessibility compared to the rest of his team, he's way more accessible right now to Hisang, to Stalker, to Charang, etc., than anybody else is on Falcons. So he's getting marked way heavier. Like because normally if Checkmate wanted to live there, he would need Chio and Merit developing something that is equally lethal. So like maybe a nade onto Vigi or like a Bastion trade onto the Ram. Something like that. Or Checkmate would just have to be like a little bit more on the back foot and less worried about marking Heesang up here. Maybe just grab the Mega and just pull back to here and just play this like on the softer side. So you'll see that Fielder and Hanbin are now trying to develop this kind of
The
counter
objective is
engage
now
angle.
active.
Merritt and Chio are kind of getting nervous, so they're regrouping this. I think this is really sloppy. I don't think Falcons can win it again like this. I don't think there's any retake potential. They got a decent HP trade onto Stalker, but like see how squished everyone is. So Chio and Merritt are gonna swing out to try and like counteract that. But you'll note how good that Chorong and Stalker are at pulling back and kind of uh, spinning their setup so that they're not just getting caught out by Falcons as they move into this open space. But now Falcons are going to have a hard time because they have to open this back up. It's probably going to start with a Tracer Force if I had to imagine, but they're not going to be able to force that much because Ram is kind of just a point bunker nuisance. So I don't really see how they're going to kill him without ults at this point. Um, Now, if I had to guess, they're just going to try and build Rush. So they'll probably start and like do a soft tap on point with Ram to try and, or sorry, with Mauga to try and get some pressure and just build Rush. So there's the point touch that we're expecting. Hisang, so note how far back Hisang is marking checkmate here, right? This is kind of what we would have liked to see maybe on that initial fight. And Stalker is like trying to interfere in this 2v1 again. So this is actually really cool that we're seeing this strategically. Because it looks like they're very much like this is like something that I'm expecting to see like pretty often in this series now is the Bastion trying to interfere in that Tracer play because if the Tracer is unmarked, right, then you get the free access to the Curie, and that pretty much breaks down the entire setup. More importantly, if you just mark down the Tracer, right, there's just no, there's just you just lose your cleanup threat, you lose your point force, you lose so much of your broader map control. So recall's forced. No, as soon as recall is forced, these guys are heading out. The Bastion and Cap. This is a mistake that I see way too often from like people in tier three, tier two, etc. Is they get the force of a key resource, like they force a critical failure, um, that has like a long lasting downside. So like a recall, right? Where the tracer is going to be a lot less present after that's forced for the next 13 seconds or so. And that's a pretty long amount of time in Overwatch. So at that point, you don't need that much resources committed to marking this person anymore. So you can actually just like Stalker and Charon can just peace out. So they're actually gonna head over towards looking for this trade again to mark these guys. And Vigi's gonna team up on that too, because Jinbin is really stable. Right? It would take a really heavy crash out to scare Jinbin. And Hisang is pretty stable. So they're more concerned about pouring as much as they can into hitting this. So this is like kind of one of the principles of Overwatch is going to be this kind of it's almost like a seesaw of like balancing punching at both sides of the enemy setup in a way that they're off sync. So that like for example we hit checkmate so that he's off sync and not threatening at the moment that Merit and Chio are trying to be threatening right now. So checkmate once again was like just a little too bold here. Um, or rather, you could argue maybe that Chio and Merit weren't quite bold enough, but it seems to me like they were, pretty close to it at least. Um, and basically trying to now this was intended to counterbalance out checkmate. But now this is really awkward because checkmate can't really that safely go in for an aggressive play here. Fielder who was supporting this is going to have to kind of just look this way and support Hanbin. Hanbin can't crash out as aggressively here as he would like because he doesn't have the tracer follow up. And then that leaves Merit and Shio pretty unbalanced. So they're probably not going to get the good HP trait that they're looking for unless they just murder Vigi here. So there's the form onto Merit. Well, so we'll see a couple things here in that like short span of time. And I want to highlight the things. So there's the force onto checkmate that we talked about. Here's the aggressive swing from Chio and Merit. Hanbin's making the call to go in for the aggressive play, even with minimal connect to fielder, and because we know that Merit and Chio have a really good angle. So this is what his timeout where I was like, well, I don't know if Hanbin's going to actually go in really fast. I thought that they would kind of just maybe leave Chio and Merit to deal with the consequences of the mistiming because they're going to have such a weak engage from Hanbin. But this is kind of that do or die mentality that a lot of the best players have. So he goes in looking for the hit. I don't know if I love checkmate doubling back on here. It's a little cowardly. I know he was afraid of getting forced back here, but I think this, if Hanbin is going to go in deep and they have that deep angle, it's probably better for him to just linger here in like a low pressure way, because this is something that he could have potentially interfered with, even if he was playing this really passively. I don't think he really does anything playing for main here with Fielder. I think that's kind of a waste. Um, Especially because a Fielder TP2 here onto his Tracer could have been really good potentially for like a kind of a flip here onto Hanbin. But Hanbin's gonna die here. There's no way he doesn't, surely. Yeah, because Fielder TP's on to Hanbin. Mara dies first as we expected because Falcons aren't really able to counterbalance this enough. Junbin hasn't taken any damage of HP. Something sloppy happens here with Vigi. Does he just TP onto... Okay, that's actually... Okay, I take that back. That's not sloppy. That was actually pretty nicely played from him because so he's getting pinched by... Um, well, it's sloppy-ish. So let me explain. So on one hand, he sees that he's under heavy pressure from the Bastion and has to get out of here. He also sees that the Mauga is running in and that they're ignoring Jinbin. So he's going to TP on to Jinbin. The problem is this does take him in concerningly close proximity to the front line. So it would have been more preferable for Hisang to be um, pulling this way more maybe, and then maybe Vigi TP onto Hisang. But it's kind of like it's whatever. It's fine enough. Um, but then we have Hanbin drop in like this, right? This is the HP trade going on between the Bastion players. It's a game of like who can track better, because right now there's not much outside interference on it. Um, so Vigi hops through here, and he just doesn't quite hop through aggressively enough, which sounds dumb because he doesn't want to like in onto Hanbin as a Mauga. and like that's pretty fair. Like I think that's a justified concern. But he does end up taking a bad HP trade from Checkmate. So that's ironically what I was saying was kind of maybe a misplay from Checkmate ends up being pretty fortuitous. Because while he still would have been able to have like a good trade coming from this direction, um, or rather Fielder still would have been able to mark Vigi coming from this direction rather than having to TP onto here. Um, it does end up putting Checkmate in a good position to be able to handle Vigi. So maybe not too shabby, but either way though, to me, even if we lose Vigi here, we've lost such like a our Bastion was so early compared to the rest of the trade here that I don't really see a way that we can stabilize this if we're Falcons. I think Merritt is in the hole, and I think Hanbin is in the hole. Yeah, because Junbin can just keep pressuring this even without the Curie. Like their comp literally just cannot deal with this Ram unless it's like everybody else is dead. Yeah, so that's actually pretty interesting. So if we look at this, and this is why the flex support is like such a such an important kill to get, and why they matter so much, because if you don't end things pretty quick, um, it causes a lot of problems. So that was actually really nice from Checkmate here, because if we look at Merit's HP, or sorry, Stalker's HP, we're not quite able to heal him up fast enough. So Checkmate actually ends up in a stronger um, cleanup position than Hisang, arguably. So both teams have the cat and tank left and tracer. So we're gonna just be because we've already the HP trade on the Bastions happened. That's over. Both teams hunted down the Kyries. That's over, right? And at this point, I don't love that Hisang tried to chase the Mauga kill and had recall forced. I think that might be a mistake. Because now Checkmate is in a slightly better position to chase Charong than Chio is to chase Hisang. Or sorry, let's see here.
Double kill.
Wrong POV. Hisang POV. Yeah, I think that was really foolish of Hisang. I think he needed to just play this slow because he has the cap. I don't think they need this kill. I know it would have been like a really good lock-in, but if he doubles back towards checkmate now and Charon can just go up in the air, I think Falcons aren't able to get the flip here. But Chia and Falcons do, Chia and Hanbin do make a good thing of, pulling back enough that Hisang can't really pursue there, letting checkmate work his good angle. I think Charong maybe gets like a little too greedy on the cleanup too. The slash there was good, but I think as soon as this is here and he hears the recall, I would rather have him like go for like a little bit more skybox presence. I think he's worried about getting sniped from Hanbin. I would rather have him be like up here right now rather than like actually trying to like confirm the kill on checkmate. Because if checkmate is alive here, I don't think he really does like he's not really that dangerous to Junbin. I'd rather have him flip the aggro onto Junbin and then 2v1 than just play there. It's still gonna take a little bit of time to kill Junbin, but Falcons are gonna get the flip here because of it. But see, that's kind of the principle of how these fights are going. So this is like that same thing, right? So Stalker and Charm are just gonna chill here for a second because they're trying to gauge the aggro. Because right now, his team is posturing up, and if his team is here, that actually puts them pretty accessible to Falcons. So he's like, okay, I gotta develop this pretty fast so that we can hit the pinch right here. So this counter pressure is going to open up his team to walk. I don't love the Falcons setup here. I think this is really sloppy from the Bastion cat. I think if your Bastion and cat aren't like right here, I think you're actually just griefing the lobby because your Bastion and cat don't have any angle to develop here besides, I guess, the messy fly through like this. Like that is pretty good, I guess, but it makes me a little uncomfortable because you're going in a little bit blind. Um, and it also gives them likely a free flip. Like you'd have your like tracer staying around here, but at that point, I think I would rather just have my tracer look for the pinch from here with my tank just kind of locking down this and my Curie like here. Um, but then my Bastion and Cat maybe like here looking this way or it just feels weird. Feels like you're not properly set up to mark this at all. And this is like a super ultra common rotation for like anything that can fly across it. Echo, Pharah, Ball, etc. Because a point touch on this point, or just any presence on here, period, is like the best leverage that you can get to open up this front space so that you can get into the play a bit more. We'll see. Maybe I'll eat my words and there'll be something clever, but because you'll note that as soon as they develop that, like Chio and Merit are like trying to head over there really fast to like make up the HP trade. And they get like a little bit of damage onto Stalker. But I don't actually think it's that good of a that's not as good of an HP trade as you would like for people who are moving across a like literally a chasm, with no cover. I think you could get a better HP trade out of that. Um, And then the other thing that makes me uncomfortable with this is if you'll look at Fielder, he's more opened up in his positioning here than I would like. Because Jinbin is making the right choice and like he's stomping on the gas here because he knows Stalker and Charizard developing the angle rapidly is going to get a lot of attention. But Checkmate opted for that bypass option again, right? He was up here looking for Pulse and he actually does like a blink over or something to get onto Vigi. So we have an HP trade on the Curies here. But the thing that actually makes me uncomfortable here is this depends a lot on the HP trade of the tanks. Because it looks like they're going to have to be the person who the Curies TP to in this case. I guess you could maybe do the Tracers too. But to me, this feels like if Hanbin gets forced out, I don't think Fielder ends up in any sort of good position. If if Vigi gets forced out, I think he's probably okay if Hanbin doesn't have charge. So I'm actually maybe we just get a Bastion Mog here, but I'm pretty curious what happens on the HP trade here on the Curies. Because both Tracers recall, or no, just Heesong tries to force it really fast. Fielder is out. So I think this might be more favorable for Falcons now, actually. Yeah, because now Hanbin's coming over to interfere with the Bastion trade, and then Stalker gets cut. So if you look at like kind of the detail here, and also some of the heals there that went on to Merit and Fielder, keeping eyes on this. Yeah, so like Merit just A plays this better, but B he's also more he gets a lot of support really quickly and more so than CR gives their Bastion. I'm a little curious how this looked here. Weird nade. Oh, he goes for the cat first. Yeah, I think that's a mistake. I don't think you go for the cat first at all. Like, if you look at how Mara handled this one, he's just immediately going for the Bastion. I think the cat's like the high risk, high reward option. I just don't think you can afford that when like the HP trade itself is so key here. So, sorry, Stalker, you got too greedy. Um, but yeah, even if he didn't get greedy, it's very likely though that he would have had the better trade because of the team coming over and having a lot more influence there than CR is able to have. CR is gonna have to reset. They don't have their angle set up that they need to do this. Heesang's got to get way more out. That's really uncomfy that he's kind of getting worse. So it's gonna be a similar setup here, but this time Falcons have a better setup to counteract it. So CR has kind of wasted a pretty costly opportunity there, I would say, because now Falcons are actually set up to deal with this rotation. There isn't really another rotation option. You just have to do that play really well. So, um, or you'd swap comp. So now we're in this situation where Vigi is once again supporting Jinbin and Heesang, but borderline disconnected with Jinbin, which is what you want, right? Hanbin is kind of blocking it. I like that he's a little bit more on the back foot rather than here, because that stops him from being endangered by like an HP trade from Stalker. So I think that's super chill. I think he's in a really good spot. Fielder's in a really good spot, connected to checkmate, and the Bastions are going to kind of do their isolated HP trade. So, okay, so Charong and Stalker decide they're going to do the slow route. So they actually are going to, instead of taking this, which is pretty disadvantageous, like I had mentioned, right, where if there's a proper mark, it's really hard to get that good HP trade. Um, you'll notice that Vigi and Heesang stepped really hard through this space, clearing and spinning through this side of the map because this side of the map was really strong for Falcons. So they're clearing out this space, and that allows Stalker and Charang to just take this without it being everybody just stacks up and ends up on a floppy angle. So if Vici keeps developing this way, I'm actually pretty happy with this. And that kind of gets it to that point where Falcons is here, CR is here, and it's kind of that like neutral standpoint again. Yeah, so Vigi keeps flipping it a bit more. Um, ooh, this is so aggressive from Merit and Chio, though. I think this is a mistake from Merit and Chio. Holy cow. Yeah, that's terrible. Yo, what were they thinking? Excuse me? What was the ping here? I assume it was a ping from Merit that caused Chio to want to go in. They see that they're not there. He thinks he has a way better HP trade than he has. But the thing that he's not realizing here is if we look at the Pu like if we look at the top-down vision here from him, bang. So that tiny thing that we just saw out of the corner of our eye was checkmate getting forced back. So if we look at checkmate's position right now, this is no good in terms of being able to step really aggressive. Because if Hanbin is in a position where he could just int in at the same time as Merit and Chio go in for like a really aggressive swing in, and you could literally just have checkmate do the stalker special and triple blink in, and it would probably work because they actually have a pretty aggressive pinch here, and I like the aggro. Like I see the vision here from Merit and Chio. The problem is it's a hallucination. They don't his team can't hit that. They don't have the aggro to balance this out. So now you're looking at the HP trade on the Bastions, and you're looking at this where it's a grounded Bastion who's getting heals from a cat and a Curie, lifts the Bastion after stabilizing that for a bit on the ground, and Jinbin and Heesang are just crashing out to basically stop these guys from crashing out into our space to stabilize this trade because this trade is already so advantageous. And the Ram is a lot better at just like blocking things, um, pun intended, but rather obstructing things than he is at like a crash out. So he's just like obstructing this to make sure that Falcons can't do anything about this HP trade. But yeah, Merit is just like getting absolutely turbo mogged here. Now Vigi might have some trouble with checkmate, but because Charang is gonna just okay, like, never mind. He has no problems with checkmate. Like, yeah, so Chio uses his ult, gets chain bin, but at this point, this just doesn't matter, I don't think. Because at this point, because Falcons has their Tracer and two supports and their Bastion, that more than outweighs the tank. So that was really nicely played by CR to recognize that mistiming from Falcons. So you'll note how aggressively CR is looking to hold this. I actually really like that because then they actually have the option of pressing into like when people are doing like a really sloppy rotation, or because if Merritt and Chio tried to head this way and then we're expecting it, they could like swing out way early here and get like a really healthy trade. Falcons are going to develop this the same exact way that we saw CR develop this, right? They're going to play this side of the map because they don't want to deal with developing that side of the map right now with an entrenched Cat Bastion. The difference is I don't know if Falcons has the time that they need. I think we're gonna get to 99 here probably because Chisang's on the back foot as he should be. Jinmin is like a little far up, but it's fine. Um, Chong and Stalker playing really quiet as they should. Just trying to get so if Merit and Chio develop aggressively to try and get a trade onto Hisang here, um, then Chorong and Stalker are gonna have a field day. Um, probably. Checkmate's gonna go for the open lane again, which is usually what I prefer, but I'm not sure if Merritt and Chio play this really chill and stop Heesang from developing the open angle while also keeping attention from Stalker and Chorong and without losing the HP trade to Criminal, then I really like this for Falcons, and I think Checkmate has like a freebie. Um, but the way that I see it, Fielder's probably gonna go for. He can't go for an aggressive rush because Jinbin has his ult. So I think what we're gonna have to see here probably is Falcons doesn't have as many tools to work with as I like. That last fight was an expensive loss for them. They're probably just gonna try and build cage and see if they can just cage the ram, honestly. But well, that's gonna destroy to Bastion pretty quick. They might be sunk. Their ult econ might be sunk, man. I don't think the trade. I think Fielder is gonna have to use Rush on Hanbin to try and like force Junbin to use his ult and form early. I don't think they can. I think this is impossible. Yeah, there's the Rush. We're gonna see a Rush match. I actually don't know if I love the Rush match from Vigi, but it's fine. Like it's not really a net loss. I just don't love it because he's gonna be forced from this position pretty quickly. Um, and also because I don't think they really need it. I'd rather they just use the form versus. I'd rather they just use Ramel versus Rush and then save their Rush for like the overtime fight. But I think they want to do the inverse of that, or maybe just do both back to back. Um, the cat HP trade is tangled up here, but what you'll note is Checkmate has gotten his free access onto Vigi, and this could be really. He's in this rush, so he's able to stabilize this pretty easily. Okay, nice. I think what I just saw here is good. So if you look at how this is handled, so they're taking the trade. He sees the aggro onto Vigi. He's pretty quickly gonna swing his Bastion down and land it, and look to see he's looking to help stabilize Vigi. And Vigi doesn't stick around, right? Vigi goes for um, the TP onto Jinbin because Hanbin flips in and I don't like this from Fielder. I think that's really bad from Fielder actually.
Let the kitsune guide you.
Yeah, so
I'm with
yeah,
you.
I really don't like that. I don't think he wants to be here at all. Like this feels so Hail Mary to me. Because we see that like the way that this is developed, Mara and Chio are once again going for like this like super deep pull, and this time Falcons can match it, so that there is like a legit threat of it. But if you look at the HP trade again here, look at the trade. You have Tracer, you have Bastion, and Curie all looking to affect this HP trade on the Bastion. Well, meanwhile, like Mauga and Kiri are both kind of just getting choked out by Ram here, and Tracer's on her way to affect the Kiri and take the Kiri out of the equation of this HP trade. but that's still not super favorable for Falcons. So now you have Merritt kind of caught in this like no man's land. If anything, if Fielder wanted to do an aggressive TP, it should have been here right now onto checkmate. And that could have actually been like a near lethal one. I say near lethal because there's a possibility that Junbin would just like turn around and walk on him. But that would at least force Junbin's ult. Um, then it would turn his back on Hanbin. So and that would open up Hanbin to affect the trade more. But as it stands, I don't. I think that TP was really sloppy from Fielder because now Mara has like undoubtedly lost this trade because we didn't see like a fast enough counterweight from Falcons to deal with the bad HP Bastion trade. Like checkmate and Tomlin kind of got close to it, but Vigi is able to look over at checkmate now, right? They were like a hair's breadth too slow. Mara is dead, and if Fielder was still in here, I think that like he could have maybe done something better with a TP towards Hanbin or checkmate, but at this point it's lost. Like CR can just dump their ults, I think. That's crazy that Chio and checkmate like they do get some trades there. It's not like that crazy because like once again that was like a pretty good setup engage from Falcons. They just didn't have like the tools to work with or quite the timing on it. There's the taxi back. Hisung and Junbin are in their like kind of stall positions here, marking the two entry points where they're gonna go for the tracer touch. But what you'll note is Junbin should play like here, and I think he will in a moment. But he's gonna basically play on the back foot so that he doesn't die too early. I'm actually a little nervous that Hisung might die here, but we'll see.
Overtime.
Okay, so that's a miracle that Hisung doesn't die there. So, because he's getting kind of cut off. Like he's in pretty deep relative to his team aggro level. I'd actually almost rather have Hisung like here right now. Um, but I think he just wanted to go for like the greedier position and was confident he would survive that. So you see a fast develop on this side from Falcons because CR doesn't have the setup on this side. So I think that's like actually pretty good for Falcons. And they do have Cage now. And importantly, there's
Overtime.
not as aggressive because it's on point. The Bastion isn't going to have quite as much presence on it, and they've already started the HP trade onto Bastion, so Stalker can't afford to break it. And that's just going to force the Ram ult counter, which I think is fine. I think that's really good from Junbin. This is like once again the HP trade mess because it's hard to replenish their HP. This favors Merit right now, but Fielder is also in like a really sticky situation. And if Fielder dies here, which he does, right? So see, they got the HP trade that they wanted because Fielder was supporting Merit in it, but Stalker dies. But throughout the span of the fight, this is going to be a lot more costly to Falcons than it is to CR. The Bastion is more important for like that early HP trade. Um, so like they won't be able to deal with Merit as effectively here now. But it won't matter if because Hanbin's gonna die now that Fielder's dead. Vigi should just TP onto that, yeah, and try and clean that up. Yep, stabilize that. Pulse. There's the kill. Stabilize it, stabilize it. Yep, bunker. Yisan does die to Merit, but that's fine. Chia whiffs that, even if he hits that, it's still like slightly favored towards CR. Nice point touches, yeah, and CR wins that. So yeah, that was really nicely played by CR. They understand this comp well.
Ready for battle. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I don't, I don't know if I agree with playing the cat on this map. I don't know if it's as strong. I I'm a huge cat proponent. I really do strongly feel it's the most overpowered hero to be released into the game since, or maybe even more so than Goat's Brig. I think it's like Sim where it's just gonna be a case of like teams have been underrating it for like months since Cat released, and now they're just like finally being like, oh wait, Cat can do some pretty crazy, valuable things in coordinated team environments. Um, that isn't just a gimmick. So I don't hate running Cat here, but by the same note, you get kind of limited ability to aggressively develop your angle. So I don't know if it's better than just running like a sim here, but a sim isn't banned because they're using it to TP out. So I don't know. Feels like maybe a little dubious, but you'll note that Hanbin can develop aggressive, like he can develop this aggressively because he has Merit and Chio swinging here with Fielder stagger behind at this proper distance again, right? Way behind. Um, but um, and you'll notice CR is going to go for the inside play instead. Will be a little bit safer for them because it's a little more favorable space for Ram and his shielding and whatnot. And since he doesn't have the CC immunity like Malga does, not that there's like really any boops here besides like a Bastion nade, but better safe than sorry. So if I had to guess, Stalker and Charung are probably going to kind of like. I don't know if I like this door for them. I think they might have to double back and just like linger around this door, or they're just gonna like sit here and kind of like just camp and then fly up like this. They're just gonna try and do a point force. So Jinben's gonna develop this way, just make sure it's cleared out, and then he's probably just gonna like sit like over here or something. But we'll see. It's gonna be like they're gonna be hunting checkmate mostly. And see like oh my gosh, yeah, look how fast. Okay, I didn't expect like the full double back from Charong and Stalker to like quadruple team checkmate. Because you'll note Chio and Merritt and Hanbin and Fielder are not in any sort of position where they can influence what checkmate's doing. So I think checkmate was on like a little too greedy of a setup for the connectivity that the Bastion Cat has on this map. But it also could be that his team just shouldn't be going coast. I don't know. Hard to say, but yeah, he just gets hunted down. And at this point, the thing to keep an eye on is going to be Fielder, because Fielder is going to be way more exposed now than Vigi is. So if Heesang just finds like a good path, it looks like Heesang's going to just go for the point contest first for a second here, or maybe he's just going for the HP trade onto Malga. Um, I think Stalker's going to be able to land an easier nade onto Fielder though now, and I think that we're going to see this not be super favorable for Falcons anymore. I do like where Merritt and Geo are. This is nice. But Stalker and Churong are going up for the HP trade. It's still pretty favorable for them though, because Vigi I think can afford to look up at them. I like Stalker, right? And Hanbin's gonna try and probably do a charge kill onto Vigi, or at least like do a walk. But even that little bit of HP trade onto to Stalker with the support of Vigi was like okay, but does come up favorable for Merit. Okay, so let's see. I wonder if did Hanbin help out with that trade maybe? Yeah, so he develops to contest this side. Okay, yeah, so he helps out with that, gets the burn and the pump.
Start this party!
And then Stalker with his targeting. So I don't love Stalker and Charon coming out from here. I actually would have liked if they swung through here together and flew up like this. I like having a little bit more distance. But it's possible that they expected Vigi to stay more over here, because Vigi is kind of like he should have a better LOS here to support that trade than he does. Like the fact that he ends up pulling this way, I think that's paying too much attention to Junbin. I think you just let Junbin kind of do his own thing. And you want this because if you're here right now as the Curie, this is the easiest contribution to this HP trade imaginable. Compared, like you don't see like Fielder has like the ideal. of what you're looking for here. And then Stalker is also once again looking for the HP onto Geo first. And I just don't think that's right. I think that's too greedy. Like maybe maybe he just feels he's the name beast and he is one of the sickest mechanical players like alive. But what the hell? Oh, okay, never mind. I was gonna say that's crazy if he's already back. But yeah, it's ends up like kind of weird for Vigi to keep Stalker up as well as he should, and Stalker ends up taking a lot more damage than Merit does, or rather than Geo does. Um, so that's gonna be a negative for Stalker. Hisang hasn't like really found his way towards
The
Fielder,
objective is
so I think
now
Falcons
active.
actually should win this now, even though they lost the initial trade. Okay, Hisang's found his way to Fielder finally, so this is actually now really good for CR, or at least okay. Oh, but Checkmate's back. Okay, so now Checkmate's onto Vigi. Okay, yeah, no, Falcons got this one. Yeah, so they've gradually gotten the force out here. Yeah, because as soon as Stalker dies, you'll notice that like even though Hisang got onto Fielder, because the Cat and Bastion unit isn't like actually flying around doing anything right now, the Cat or the Curie isn't as vulnerable, and they also have like a really good stable TP onto Merit technically or Hanbin here. Um, and Jinbin should try to walk this, I think, if he sees the TP, but he can't really because of the Bastion. So that they actually do a good job of playing to their strengths there, I think. Yeah, so that was a good cleanup. Gosh, as he's not got caught out that early. So just like an I assume he just gets hit by like an unexpected. Oh, oh my gosh, he just gets like destroyed. Okay, damn. Okay, Fielder. Yeah, he's on. I guess didn't expect the early mark, and that was a really nice read from Fielder. So Sierra's still gonna like try and soft develop their push, but it's not gonna go that well. They're gonna need to pull back. Yeah, Falcons tries to push a little bit. They do. I think they used their form there, or no? Who used form? Stalker used form. I don't think that's any. That's bad because now Hisang's going in for the aggro. He hits the stick. But look at the HP trade that's going on Junbin. Like, Merit's about to do something big here. I feel it in my bones. Not as big as I had hoped, but... Okay. Merit's doing nothing. So, what happened there? The stick onto checkmate was cool. Gets Suzu'd. Hanbin is kind of stranded. We don't have form. Don't tell me they all focus Junbin, bro. No way. They totally are all focusing Junbin. You have checkmate, Hanbin, and Merit all shooting into a ram shield. Like, there's no way that they fell for the classic bait, bro. And then Stalker's just free to toss in this massive nade onto Hanbin and Merit. Like, just get the free angle. That is such a bad misplay from Falcons. You can't just, like, they should have profited off that HP trade by switching the aggro onto the Bastion more. Since Junbin wouldn't have been able to counterbalance it. Yeah, Falcons are gonna slowly bleed them out. No. Really? They really lose that? Because Merit dies. So CR should win this. Yeah, so Vici has no good TPs. He just dies. He should have been looking for the one from Hisang, but probably didn't find it fast enough. That is costly. Charang also dies. So checkmate is doing just like unspeakable things in the mid fight here, I guess. Jinmin is still hard forced. This is really favorable now for Falcons as long as they use rush or stabilize this. Hanbin crashes out. Jinbin gets the kill into fielder's aggressive position. Chio whiffs that. Okay. So CR won that as we thought that they would at the start when Falcons inted it on that initial trade, and I'll look at Junbin. But Falcons does some gross things in the mid fight and finds both of CR's supports, and that makes things really close, but CR does pull out the win on that in the end. Tracer's matching, Bastion's developing their angles. Hanbin trying to overload that to threaten the danger HP trade. Geo and Mare are in a really awkward spot here, but yeah, they're gonna just overwhelm Stalker pretty quickly with Rush plus all of that. Checkmate is fine. Did they just die to the Ramel and to Rush Ramel, maybe? They're not keeping up with the HP trade on Hanbin too well. Hanbin's gonna use his cage. Jinbin dies. That checks out. He doesn't quite want to match his ult because they have time and this isn't like super favorable for CR. Okay, yeah. So yeah, CR doesn't like really do and like they kind of just sit on their toes while or sit on their butt while Stalker and Charong are way over here getting dogged on by like 3 or 4 people. He's starting developing angle. I think CR probably just tries to overload checkmate angle again. Yeah, see, they soft overload it with cat, not like a full overload. But they don't like the outside develop here. Checkmate's in a really dangerous position here. That's really strong. Oh, wait, that's horrible from Hanbin. He thought they were going in way more aggressively there from Checkmate's positioning than they were. But he's already on half. That's not a good place for Fielder to have OS. And Merritt and Chio can't aggro that fast. Yeah, it's over for Falcons on this fight. Okay, well, Malga does Malga things. How does he survive for that long? Dude, Malga's a crazy hero. Vigi is in a pretty good spot, but not giving as much care here as I maybe would have liked. Jinbin, I think, should pop the Annihilation now. I think he's really slow on this. I think you just pop the Annihilation. I don't know why he's greeting this badly. His team can afford it on the old econ. Yeah, like, and then it ends up weird because now they had to use, they felt like they had to use Cat ult too. They get the flip, that's chill. Nice from Hisang. Jinbin's just gonna head back. He's obstructing the Tracer, which is fine. Hanbin isn't going to have as favorable of a trade here as he thinks because Chio is just varying Merit, so he has to detach from Merit. Really nice pressure from Hisang to keep him on the back foot. And that should give... Yeah, they're not able to recover Hanbin's HP there now. Stalker should have a super free walk-in. That's an interesting series of trades there for CR. Okay, we're seeing kind of the same pattern. Falcons is going to go for the open space develop because they feel more confident in dealing with Hanbin. But note how they've adapted this time on CR's side. Jinbin is so much more proactively set up to choke this out. And Falcons doesn't have much time to double back and reset this. So they have to walk into this. So they're forced now to swing Falcons, to swing Merit and Chio really wide, to kind of get like a counter angle, or they just have to play all vertical stack. And either way, that's actually really favorable, I think, for Jinbin to interfere. So as long as as long as Heesing keeps checkmate busy, Falcons lost this already. Because like look at Junbin, Hanbin is no longer involved in this HP trade, right? And as soon as he leaves, look at Junbin, he's already on top of Fielder. And Vigi is gonna have kind of that awkward TP situation again, but like Stalker this time is gonna have the pretty positive vibes trade onto Merit. So it's gonna force Merit weirdly into the middle of the map like this. Stalker and Charong are gonna take the more elegant pullback instead of dealing with the Mauga, who can survive with his hearts even versus the Bastion aggro. But Jinbin's just gonna keep chasing Fielder here, I think. Ooh, that was nice from Chio. So Chio gets that. That's pretty big, but it's not like the end of the world yet for CR because Ram doesn't like do that much. He kind of just obstructs stuff. Um, Heesan gets the advantage on checkmate. TP onto the Chong. This is really nice. This is a good pinch here that Stalker and Heesang have. The rush doesn't get as much as they want. Heesang's doing a really good job at keeping this contested. They're gonna have to give the flip. They have a couple percent. Charon gets a top. And Falcons are all stacked up. I think they sold this. They're so focused on getting Charong that now so Stalker is gonna get traded out here, but Vigi's gonna keep it close. And I think Heesang and Hanbin have like a really dangerous point presence here. Yeah, Vigi somehow rotates out from there alive, gets the rush on point, and I think Jinbin now if Jinbin gets his annihilation here, I think is over. I'll go to Vigi's POV here because I think this is a crazy sequence, but Charang has, yeah, Heesang, Charang and Jinbin, or Heesang, Vigilante, and Jinbin did crazy thing this fight. Here, let me go back to like when he was marking. So he was marking this guy. Heads towards the backline trade. Immediately looking to farm that. That was nice. I don't know if I love the aggro on the cat as opposed to doing a quick hop onto this and looking for that aggro onto Fielder, but he might have felt that he didn't want to go straight head on into it. Or because they might have, maybe they checked the postal. So there's a really good HP trade onto Hanbin. So I'll have to see where that comes from, because him getting forced out like that, that was so worth from Heesang. That's really valuable. So how does this happen then from good slow? That's really big. Focusing the Bastion. Focusing the Curie. That's super good pressure on the Curie. I think Vigi might have been most of the damage onto Bastion. Or onto Mauga. Yeah, because that was nice from Jinbin, but he was most of the damage. It could have been Stalker returning, but I think Stalker had just died. There's the Suzu, immediate backup for space, just what we like to see. And he knows when to abandon this too. It's before Stalker's dead, so he still has a little bit of time to peel back. Suzu. So he's just playing survival games here. Okay, that's a crazy kill. That's actually such a good kill to get. So what happens with Hanbin's HP? Maybe it was Stalker coming back. No, never mind. It really was just mostly Junbin, I guess. Yeah, it was just Junbin plus Stalker getting that like really good target focus there, so forced out. So yeah, that was really nicely played from them. I had been intending to maybe go through the other maps, so I fell into the classic, just getting too obsessed with the small details. So this ended up as a whole hour. Uh, this is
Overtime.
my first time actually watching this comp, like as like a whole match. So hopefully I didn't get any of the details terribly wrong, but I'm pretty confident in the analysis. So hopefully a couple of you sickos out there enjoyed having this as a resource to look at things.